Welcome to Scoolinary, the online cooking school that transforms people and connects cultures. You will learn with the best chefs in the industry, and you will discover the broadest online catalog of topics related to gastronomy. We publish new courses every week. In our podcast, we have coffee with a chef every week. Each of them will tell us about their experience and their vision for the culinary world to help you better understand this exciting industry. Come on, join us for coffee. So this morning we are joined by Anna Gordon, chef and owner of The Good Batch in Brooklyn, New York. She pivoted to cookies from her time as a project manager in New York City and has since made hundreds of thousands of cookies with an ingredient that can't be bought. Her own boundless creativity. More than just cookies, Anna has applied her talents to cakes, pies, and ice cream sandwiches, and altogether, she's built a sweet business from butter, sugar, flour, and eggs. Hi, Anna. Welcome.
Hi.
And thanks for joining us for coffee.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
So before we get started, are you a coffee drinker?
I am.
How do you take your coffee?
When I'm working, I like to have it drip, kind of an americano with oat milk. And I've taken now when I'm on holiday or it's the weekend, I'm out and about, I like to have a cappuccino. But there's a distinction between a work coffee and a not work coffee.
So before we get started, I'd like it if you would tell us in your own words who you are and where you're from so that our listeners could get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. My name's Anna. I was born in Washington, D.C. and grew up right outside of there in Maryland. So I'm very much an East Coast American. And after university, I headed straight to New York City. I just knew I wanted to live there. I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do, but I knew I was going to just kind of dive into the creative world. The fast-paced, artistic just sparkle of the city drew me. And I've been there ever since. And so now I run and operate this cookie company out of Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. I run it with my husband. I have 2 daughters who are 5 and 8, and they're just everything. And when I'm not baking or running this company, I love to take walks in the park. I'm a pretty avid yoga practitioner. I love to draw and paint and just kind of explore New York City as much as I can.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit to your time growing up. And it sounds like you had a strong cookie tradition from a very early age. Now, cookies are often connected to ancestral heritage. And was that your experience as well?
Cookies for me as a child were really, I mean, sweets were kind of always around the house, but cookies themselves were really introduced around the kind of Christmas, wintry holidays, and Valentine's Day too. I would go over to my aunt's house, and they would buy cookie dough that like from the stores, kind of like came in a tube, and so we would shape those and roll them up and bake those, and then we would also get like tubed frosting, so frosting from the grocery store, and just pile it on with sprinkles and different colors. So it was, I guess, in a way that is my heritage. And I'm glad to say I've evolved that, and I'm now making things from scratch, and the flavors have grown up a little bit. But yeah, like cookies with my aunts over the holidays was a huge part of my upbringing.
Now, were your aunts allowing you to do that because they're exacting a revenge on one of your parents and letting their child eat as much sugar as possible?
I think they just loved the energy of it. I think we all loved the excitement. We all have sweet tooths, and I don't think they grew up doing it.
Oh.
It was just something that I guess then in that sense, like kind of all came together and created this tradition and had so much fun. And it was about spending time together. I can still feel the stomach ache that I would get each year, because I was just putting everything, like trying everything, so it was a good lesson early on that there is a consequence to endless sugar consumption.
Well, And how have you carried that tradition on into your own life with your two daughters?
They are learning to bake with me at home in a different way. I mean, it's not like piles of sugar when we bake at home. It's and we did some around the holidays. It's a very kind of like because I'm a professional, I keep it very organized. So they come in and it's all laid out and we're making everything from scratch and they have a little recipe card and we are really engaged through the whole thing from like weighing out the ingredients in the beginning to frosting the cake at the end and then sharing it as a family. So we're still spending that time together. It's just I think the the actual product has changed a little bit.
Sure. Your father taught you an interesting lesson, which
Mm.
was not to take food too seriously. Now, in your own opinion, how does someone take food seriously, and how do you think they would break that habit?
That's a good question. I think when I say that he taught me not to take it too seriously, what I mean is to learn a bit of improv in the kitchen. And I certainly live this now when I'm cooking at home, is to be a little more freeform with it. So, for instance, what's in the fridge today? What's at the market? What do we have to work with? How can we turn this into a meal that won't be stressful to make and that will be delicious to eat? Whereas to answer your question, how can people take it too seriously? I think that can be coming from a place of I need to have every single ingredient in the right amount, and it has to be really planned ahead. And I will caveat that by saying I really, really respect and admire families and individuals that can do intensive meal planning at home because that is kind of taking it seriously and it's being prepared. I just by the time I get home, my way of cooking is much more kind of loosey goosey to put it informally. So it's kind of whatever works for the individual, but take what I've taken from that experience of learning how to just kind of improv and see what do we have, what can we make from it. That's helped me be. It's kind of shaped who I am as a baker. I'm not so particular about every single thing. I can be a little more. I can have a little more fun with it than maybe I would be if I was following everything exactly.
Sure, but pastry, I think I'm just speculating here, by its
Yeah.
very nature, is a very particular
Yes.
category.
Right.
So, as much as you can exercise a little creative freedom, I mean, you kind of have to obey some rules, don't you?
Yes. I know this is a bit of a contradiction. So here's my inner compass is follow the recipe for the structure. To your point, yeah, the baking pastry, there is really um a fine order that things go in. You do want things to be exact. The method, the temperatures, those I do follow and having done this now for 15 years, like I'm pretty comfortable with those technical skills. Where I think the improv comes is more of the flavoring and the seasoning. Oh, I want to sprinkle cinnamon on this, or like, let's put an herb in there. That would be fun. So
Hmm.
being a little more, just giving myself kind of the creative freedom to improv with seasoning is is really fun. And then also if I'm working on a recipe, I can start to say, okay, well, I'm going to lower the butter on this, or I'm going to increase the flour on this a little bit just because I do want to change the structure, but I'm going to do it really kind of methodically. So yeah, it's both strict in that you want to follow, create something that is going to come out exactly how you want it, but then having fun with the flavoring, I think is where some more creativity can come in.
Huh. All right. So we'll go back a little bit in time to your beginnings and kind of how you started out in cookies and pastry with your Meet Your Instructor video from your Scoolinary course called American Cookies. Your first job was as a project manager at a heavy metal record label where you
Yes.
loved to bring cookies to your coworkers.
Yeah.
What were their favorites?
Well, the whole thing that kind of inspired the cookies at that time was at this record label. I just moved to New York City. I was very young, and I met my husband there. And I mean, at the time, we were just two sweet people, kind of, dating and falling in love. And he really loved. He kind of told me that he loved oatmeal raisin cookies. So I started working on that recipe, and so I brought those in, and those were, I mean, they were popular certainly with my partner, and other people liked those too. But that was kind of what started it.
Yeah, and I'll add your husband is also your current business partner as
Yes.
well. Were there any cookies that you brought in? They were like, yeah, don't bring these again, please.
I can't remember a cookie, but I can remember a pie. It was around Thanksgiving, and this was when I was really starting. I was dabbling with the idea of like, how little sugar can I put into a recipe with it still tasting good, right? Like, just for the sake of health.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember making a pie that was just so god awful. I don't even know if I put any sugar in it. It just sat. There was like one teeny slice taken, and no one took the rest of it. So I've learned my lesson that sweetener is is necessary. You can get creative of what kind and how much, but I do remember that was a good lesson.
A good lesson for all of us, I think. Were there any skills that you accumulated over your career not in pastry that you were able to
Mm.
transfer to your job in pastry?
Certainly, as a project manager, I use them every day here. Just learning how to organize a project. So everything from mapping out what our goals are, what the steps are going to be necessary to take them, how to delegate that, the order they go in, the priority,
Hmm.
how to handle like a surprise that comes up and you don't know where to put it in your project schedule. So all of those things, absolutely. I'm so grateful that I have a foundation as kind of just an organizational thinker. Really helps run a business and develop product in the kitchen. It's both of them. So those have been really helpful.
Yeah, I think in watching the videos for your course, you're very methodical in the way that you
Oh,
arrange the ingredients and
thank you.
explain how they fit into a recipe. They're very pretty easy to follow. So thank you
Great.
from the rest of us.
Thank
Uh,
you.
as I said, so your course features 6 cookie recipes. You have one, the brown butter sugar cookie recipe,
Hmm.
which I made over the weekend. Excellent recipe. That one has several variations. But I did want to ask, what makes the cookies American?
I think just the general style, texture, shape of them, the traveling that I've done, I'm always poking around when I go to different countries to see what cookies look like. And I think what makes them distinctly American is, I mean, the ingredients. So like the brown butter and shortbread. I know shortbread kind of hails more from Europe, but it's been very brought into the American culture. And the shape of it, like I put it in a thumbprint and a pinwheel. Those are just shapes that you can see around this country. A peanut butter cookie is very classic American. Chocolate cookie, chocolate chip. These are all just, it's not to say, um, I'm sure they're all inspired by other countries like long ago, and they have roots elsewhere, but Americans have really taken to these flavors, and they're just ubiquitous. They're in grocery store aisles, they're in the coffee shops, they're at the airport, like they're everywhere. So these are kind of our, um and I say our as a collective American palate. They're very common here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I'd agree. Yeah, the next one that I want to try is the vegan peanut butter cookie recipe. I think,
Mm,
yeah, the peanut butter cookies I think those are kind of synonymous with American cookies.
yeah, yeah.
What's a good recipe to start with from your course?
I would actually recommend that one. That's a
Oh,
really I like that recipe because it's you can make it by hand. You don't have to have a mixer. You don't have to get out your mixer if you don't have one. And it's just it just kind of comes together really nicely. I do recommend using, if you can find it, more of like an all natural peanut butter, just so that you're starting out with a baseline of like as little sugar as possible. And going back to my earlier comment, I promise there's enough sugar in the recipe for it to be tasty. Um, so it comes together really nicely, and also the cookie dough is edible, so it's a nice reward that you can just kind of like pick off a little piece. And it bakes really nice. And also if you like a crunchy, crispy cookie, you can kind of flatten it out. But if you like more of a soft baked cookie, you can leave it a bit under. So that one's just great, and grown-ups and kids like it. And yeah, I love that recipe.
What would be the consequence of using a peanut butter that's a little less natural, one that's kind of full of,
The like oils and sugar.
yeah,
And honestly, it'll just taste a little different. It'll
yeah,
still come together though. I just like the all natural because that's how we make it here, and so I like that taste. But using, more of a creamy grocery store peanut butter, it's just going to be a slightly different texture than what we make
sure.
here in Brooklyn. But that's okay because it's your kitchen, and you should just use the ingredients that are accessible to you. So it will still be delicious.
Yeah, and
And
yeah, go ahead, please.
I was gonna just say, with that cookie, you can also use almond butter or sunflower butter or cashew butter. So you can just kind of play around and change the nut.
Oh, hey
Yeah.
now. That
Yeah.
that opens up new possibilities. That
Yes. See,
sounds,
this is where the improv comes
yeah,
in. This is
it's
where having fun with it is the best part.
for sure. Now, something you said about the peanut butter cookie recipe is appealing, that you don't need a lot of kitchen equipment to make it. However, not all cookies are made that way. So, butter and sugar, creaming them together seems to be a feature in many cookie recipes. Is
Mhm.
it absolutely necessary?
It is if you want it to have a certain texture. So the ways that one can bring together, there's a couple ways that you can bring together flour, I'm sorry, sugar and butter. One, you can melt the butter and stir it in, and that's usually going to be like a crispier cookie. You can make it more of like a French pastry dough, or like a pâte brisée, which is like a pie crust, or a biscuit or a scone, which is you add the butter into the flour and then add your sugar, which is going to be a flaky dough. But if you want a chewy and kind of like crispy on the outside, chewy in the center, more kind of quote unquote American style cookie, the way that you do it is the creaming. And what you're doing is basically injecting the tiny sugar crystals into the fat molecules of the sugar, of the butter, so that when it bakes, it melts and rises and puffs up and then resettles into this very specific texture. So it's not necessary, but it will. But if you want that kind of texture in the end, this is how you do it.
Can that be achieved by hand, or it just takes a lot more muscle?
Both, both of
Okay.
those things. And if you don't have a mixer, which is totally fine. I actually at home I use like a little handheld like beater.
Hmm.
But if I didn't have that, and I've done it without this, what you should do is just make sure your butter is really soft, not melted, but soft. So either leave it out on like a warm summer day, or just put it in the microwave for a couple bursts at a time, like 10-second bursts, just to soften it up. And then you can take a whisk or a spatula and just kind of like, as aggressively as your wrist can handle, mix the sugar in until it's kind of like a paler, homogeneous
Yeah,
one. It
like a
becomes
lighter.
one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Have you ever crossed paths with a cookie flavor that's shocked or surprised you?
Probably more than I can remember. I'm actually working on a turmeric cookie right now
Oh,
that I'm very surprised how yummy it is. And it's kind of reminding me, or it's not reminding me, it's opening me up to how delicious turmeric can be. And it's a bit of a nuanced spice, and I'm playing with adding different ingredients to it to kind of like push it in one direction or another. So long story short, I think I'm always surprised when I bring in like kind of a savory or an unexpected spice or ingredient into the sweet world, and seeing what happens when you add a bit of sweetener or pair it with another flavor. I think those are the fun moments in the development phase of baking.
Yeah. So now the big question is, when will that be rolled out?
This spring in New York City. Stay tuned.
Ah,
Yeah, we're hoping to launch it
and
later this year.
I don't think I caught. Do you do individually packaged cookies? Do you ship them?
We ship within the states. So
Okay.
at the moment, you can order our cookies to be delivered to the 50 states of America, but maybe one day to Europe. We'll get there.
Okay, we will wait for
Stay
that
tuned, or
day.
I'll come over more and
Oh,
bake more there.
all right, that works. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, you are indeed the founder and co-owner, along with your husband, of the Good Batch in New York City. How do you come up with the name?
Hmm. This name, I just love that this name came to me when I was walking in the woods. I knew I wanted to start. I was in pastry school, and I knew I wanted to start my company, and I was trying to think of a name that would evoke kind of a warm feeling and something happy and inviting. And I didn't want it to just be about cookies, because I didn't even know it at the time, but I also deep down knew that I would make other things than just cookies. So I wanted to have a broad name that I could do other things with. And the Good Batch, it just felt so right and happy and welcoming.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it yourself. You do more than just cookies. So, when people are coming to you, and you have a location on Fulton Street in Brooklyn, is that correct?
Yes.
Ah, what are people coming to you in search of?
Well, it's fun that we really enjoy. We talk about this a lot internally, how some we have like a whole swath of customers that come for very different things and are always kind of like surprised when they lift their head up and they're like, "Oh, you do all that?" So, I'd say our neighborhood, so our locals, the community that we serve 7 days a week here is coming to us for coffee. First of all, we have a really, really good coffee program that we're super proud of. And so they come for coffee, they come for their morning biscuit or scone, and they're grabbing a cookie for the way. And they might come in the afternoon and bring their kids after school and get a cookie then. So that's our local community. Also, they're ordering birthday cakes from us. That's a whole other thing that we do.
Hmm.
In the summer, we have this really profound ice cream sandwich program. And so some customers come to us at the markets that we do offsite, and they just know us as the ice cream sandwich company. They don't even know our name. They just know us like, oh, they're the ice cream sandwich company. You go there. We've been there for 10 years. That's tried and true. And then kind of our third swath of customers is out in New York City, and they are finding us at a coffee shop. And so that, we wholesale our baked goods to a couple hundred coffee shops around New York City. So our cookies and our pumpkin bread, I mean, we're serving, like thousands of people a day are eating our pumpkin bread and banana bread. And so that's a whole other kind of like tangent of our customer base. So it's fun. It's a nice range, but for us internally, we really consider ourselves like cookies are our core, but we do, yeah, so much more. I know that rhymes. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but
So cookies, they do seem or sound a little bit seasonal. So you have ice cream sandwiches in the summer, but what kind of cookies go with your ice cream sandwiches?
oh, so many. We do an oat chocolate chunk one with sea salt and drizzled fudge in the ice cream and vanilla. We do a coconut macaroon with a strawberry curd, and it's rolled in almonds. Like we do a kind of a more play on like a French macaron, but as we were talking about before, macarons can be very finicky. So ours are not finicky, and it's a chocolate one. And then it's with chocolate ice cream and toasted meringue and sponge candy. So it's like all over the place. It's very texture forward. And we think of our ice cream sandwiches as like plated desserts in the form of a handheld, easy to eat sandwich.
Yeah, and that said, Can you walk us through some of the seasonal cookie offerings that you have?
Well, this let's see. For the holidays this year, we did our chocolate crinkle, which is in the video that I did. That's a really good one, and we use hazelnuts in there, but you can put any nut in there. We also did a chocolate peppermint cookie. This summer, I'm doing a lemon bar, and we did when the peaches are in season, I cooked some peaches down and made a gingery peach jam and put that in a brown butter cookie to kind of have like a peach cobbler cookie. I've done a pineapple margarita cookie for kind of like Cinco de Mayo here, and so it's really just if the cookie if there's a fruit in season, we like to turn it into a jam and somehow get it into a cookie. I also love working with citrus in winter, so it runs the course.
Yeah,
I could go on.
right. Your boundless creativity. Well, there's no shortage of cookie ideas, so therefore, um, people as they find out about you even more, they'll be more
Hmm.
intrigued to come back again and again. So, as we've mentioned several times now, you are in New York City. It's really hard to open and operate a business there, especially in hospitality,
Mhm.
restaurants, coffee shops, and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, are you ever tempted to stress eat your own products?
Oh my god, every day.
Do you have a
Constantly.
favorite?
It really it changes, it depends, and, it's kind of my life work to keep it in check. I feel like there's some alignment of the universe that had, I'm like such a sugar fiend, like, it's like my addiction, it's my one addiction, and I feel like there's some funny universal thing that put me in this field to be a pastry chef, and so I'm always up against it, and I'm always trying to be disciplined about it, but I think my biggest thing right now that I struggle with is we make this pumpkin bread, as I mentioned, and every
Ooh.
day we're slicing it, every morning, and there's always these edges. The edge piece gets cut off, and it just is like a huge stack, and it's kitchen snacks. And I just cannot resist these things. So like I'm sure if you there's so much pumpkin bread scraps in my bloodstream, like at any given time. But I really do try and limit my sweets actually to like the morning. And by the afternoon, I've kind of like switched gears and I'm like, okay, I'm done with the sugar. Like eh, dinner's coming up. I got to wind down. I got to shift into family mode. So most of my sugar snacking is in the morning.
Yeah, and it's a losing battle to try to
It's
justify that of,
I
"Well, but it's a
just
vegetable."
accepted it. I've accepted it, and I try
Yeah.
not to fight it if it's yeah, but it's
Oh, that's a
complicated.
good yeah, that's a good approach, though. It sounds like you've got,
Mhm.
uh, order to your day.
Yeah.
We're getting close to Valentine's Day. Do you have any special cookies in the works?
Actually, yeah, my so we're very fortunate to have an amazing pastry chef on our staff here. Her name is Brianna, and she developed a Valentine's Day cookie, which is so exciting. I mean, just on an aside, I love having people on our team create their own work and being able to help that process and kind of mentor the R&D process. So it's been really cool. And she's developed a bunch of stuff while here, but she made up this cookie. We're calling it the charm cookie, and it's a little bit of a like Linzer cookie style where it's a sandwich cookie, and the cookie itself is a pink peppercorn shortbread with a passion fruit curd in the middle, and then it's dipped in white chocolate and rolled in more peppercorn and sugar, and there's a heart cut out to it. So it's like spicy and tangy and sweet and beautiful, which I love as many adjectives that you can use to describe a cookie, the more the better in my opinion. And this one kind of has it all. So
Yeah.
it'll be a really fun and visual and tasty.
It sounds like my dream cookie. Like, the spiciness and the sweet
Yes.
and the
Ugh,
and the passion fruit kind of, it's got everything going on all at
isn't
once.
spicy sweet so
Yeah.
fun? It's so good.
Oh.
Yeah, we like it too.
Good. I will dispatch my Brooklyn friends to go there.
Or you can make the brown butter salty, the brown butter sugar cookie in this recipe, and you can roll it in peppercorn and put a dollop of passion fruit curd in it. It's the same. Make it at home.
All right, I will do that. So you've been able to collaborate with a lot of chefs, both in and outside of pastry making. I think I caught somewhere that you have a cookie play date, which I want you to kind of take a detour and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my Playdate series I started it last year, and it was inspired by wanting to just connect with other people in a creative and professional realm. So New York City is just full of incredible talent, and I'm fortunate enough to be kind of friends with some of that. And so this was a way to create something that had never been created before with a friend, and I really saw it as like a piece of art that we were creating. It's kind of like a very short-lived moment in time. So for instance, last year I collaborated with the owners of this restaurant called Thai Diner they're in Soho, and it's just incredible. It's my favorite Thai food in the city. Anne Redding and her husband Matt are very talented chefs, and so what we came up with this idea of a Thai iced tea cookie, and it was a Thai iced tea cookie base, and then I made this swirly ganache of the Thai iced tea, which is kind of the moment where the condensed milk hits the mixture of the flavor, and then we both got to kind of like showcase this as a cookie that represents like who we are as chefs. And it's kind of a fun overlap of this Thai restaurant in Manhattan and my Brooklyn bakery, where normally we would not cross over, but it was this intersection that we got to share with the world, and people loved it. And for me personally, it's just such a drive of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and kind of forcing me to think about new ways to bring cookies to life, which, if I'm considering myself kind of a leader in the cookie New York City food world, like that's what I need to be doing. And so this it's a vehicle for me to push myself and connect and have fun and make cool art, and it's been really rewarding.
Yeah, from the pictures on Instagram, it looks like it's a lot of fun. So, given all your collaborations, do you have anyone in particular you would recommend for a future episode of this podcast?
Ooh. Um, that's a great question. I mean, I always love to shout out my very dear friend Fanny Garrison. She's a Mexican-born pastry chef here in New York City, and she she's so insanely talented. It's hard to even wrap your head around, but we met years and years ago when we shared a kitchen together, but she does Mexican paletas and confections and ice cream. And she then has a donut company, and she started a savory company last year, doing more like just Mexican street food. And has such a warm heart and thinks about food in this kind of like creative, fun, critical way. And she's just a lovely human. So Fanny Garrison. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think I have in my notes you've mentioned her elsewhere before. Yeah, along with a few others, so she's worth checking out. Anna, I've come to the end of my questions. Well, I should say, I could ask you so many more
We could go
questions.
on. We
I
could
could
go
go
on.
on and on and
Yeah.
on. That's for sure. Um, but, but I want to say thank you very much for coming on and having coffee with us today. It was a real pleasure.
Best way to start the day. I love this. Thank you for having me.
If you liked this episode, don't miss an episode by becoming a member. We're waiting for you each week with more guests. We're on all podcast platforms. Just search for Coffee with Scoolinary. We're also waiting for you at our website and on our social networks, where you can get to know all our courses and teachers.